Hugh. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Okay, so today we're going to ask you a series of questions about St. Patrick's Day. And the first question is, in Ireland, why is this an important holiday?
Great question. So, St. Patrick's Day is the most important national holiday in Ireland, and it is celebrated by all of the communities and the families and the organizations, the community groups all around the country. And the reason it's so important is because in the 400s AD, St. Patrick came to Ireland and he converted the country to Christianity. And now, of course, Ireland is a very, very Christian country, a very, very Catholic country. So that tradition starts with St. Patrick. That's why it's so important for us.
How do families celebrate this day?
So what we do as communities in Ireland is every village, every town, and every city has its own St. Patrick's Day parade, its own festival. So they organize this for months in advance. They practice playing the musical instruments, the dances, the theater groups, everything you can imagine. And then on the day, out come the television cameras all around the country, and people parade through their towns and their villages celebrating. So it's less of a family celebration, it's more a community celebration, celebrating all of the things that we do in our sporting organizations, our artistic organizations.
From a marketing point of view, how do you celebrate this day in Ireland?
So marketing is a strange way of thinking about it because it's been a tradition for many, many years. And I think it's not a commercial thing in Ireland, although some of the displays in the festivals are supported by companies and organizations, so they do use it as an advertising opportunity, but primarily it's a community event. So news about it will start months in advance as the different groups start getting ready for their presentations in the St. Patrick's Day parades. So I think mostly it is spread through communities, grassroots level, and also then spread through the major television stations because everyone gets super excited about St. Patrick's Day as they start preparing for it.
And the last question. So despite not being a national holiday, in this school we have decided to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Why do you think this cultural exchange is important?
Yeah, great question. Of course, in the school we celebrate lots of festivals from Colombia and from lots of different countries around the world. And I think it's part of being a human being to be curious and interested about what other people do and what other human beings do in different parts of the world. So it's wonderful to learn about other people's music, about their dance, about the food they eat, about their beliefs, about their values, about their traditions. It's just part of being curious is part of what makes us human beings. Of course, the fact that this is St. Patrick's Day is associated with an English-speaking language means that it fits quite nicely into our school's bilingual program. But I think more broadly, it's just about, hey, being a curious human being and wanting to know what other people do.
Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Nice to be here.
Why do you think this is an important holiday?
Great question. So I think it's important to different people for different reasons. So in Ireland, it's important because St. Patrick is the patron saint of the country and he introduced Christianity to Ireland. So it's really important for us, and it's a festival that we use to celebrate all of the things that we do in our communities. But there are 70 million people around the world who claim to have Irish ancestors. And there are only 5 million in our country. So for those other 70 million people living around the world, 500,000 of them in the United Kingdom, many more in the United States and in Canada and in Australia and other countries, it's really important because it reminds them of their Irish heritage, their Irish roots, and it gives them a way of celebrating that heritage together and remembering where they came from.
Why is this day associated with green?
It's associated with green because St. Patrick was explaining to the Irish people about the Christian idea of God, and specifically the idea of the Trinity. And he was looking for a way to make this really clear, and so he found a leaf of a plant called the shamrock. And the shamrock has a stem, and then in one leaf it has 3 petals. And he said, it's just like this leaf. It's one leaf, one God, but three petals, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And that's how he explained the idea of the Trinity to the people of Ireland. And so the green of the shamrock has become the green of St. Patrick's Day. The other way it fits is that Ireland is a very green agricultural country. So it sort of feels appropriate as well for that reason.
Who was St. Patrick and why do we commemorate him?
St. Patrick was a boy of 16 years old, and he was living in England. And some pirates came from Ireland and captured him and made him a slave. And he was a slave looking after sheep in Ireland for about 6 years. And during that time, he became a Christian and he prayed to God and he decided to escape. So he walked for 200 miles and finally got a ship back to England. And then he decided, do you know what? The people of Ireland need Christianity. So I'm going to become a priest. So he studied in monasteries in France and in Germany. And then some years later, he came back as a missionary and he converted many, many Irish people, including kings and princes and princesses, to Christianity. And Ireland then became a major center for Christianity in Europe. In fact, there were times when Christianity almost died out in Europe. And the reason it survived was because the monasteries that descended from St. Patrick and his tradition kept the light of Christianity alive. So it's really important. And this was all happening in the 400s AD. There's another story. Did you know that in Ireland we don't have any snakes? There are some snakes in the UK, but not in Ireland. And the story goes that St. Patrick drove the snakes out of Ireland. So that's part of the myth as well.
Thank you for saying these questions.
My pleasure.